pastors, you know how important it is to teach the Word of God and to teach the values and the principles found in the Bible. But just how the church needs to learn biblical values, the church needs to vote biblical values. Why? Because we know that biblical values, God's values, will have the greatest positive impact in our city, our state, and in our country. So one of the ways we can empower our church to vote is by helping them register to vote. And how can you do that? By hosting a voter registration drive at your church. And it's easier to do than you think. So here are some simple steps on how to host a voter registration drive at your church. So the first step is choosing a volunteer coordinator. First, you're going to have to choose someone from your church to be your volunteer coordinator. Ideally, you want your volunteer coordinator to be passionate about voting biblical values and passionate to have the church to vote biblical values. Now, it's important to note that the volunteer coordinator is going to need to become a volunteer deputy registrar in the state of Texas. And this is a very simple process that takes only 15 to 30 minutes at your county elections office or election center. A volunteer deputy registrar is legally permitted to help church members fill out their voter registration forms. As well, your volunteer deputy registrar is legally permitted to collect the forms and return them to the elections office. Now, you're not going to want your volunteer coordinator to do it all by themselves, so it's important that you also provide them with a volunteer team, a team of people who are also passionate about voting biblical values. And once you and your team are ready to go, you're going to have to choose a time of when to host your voter registration drive, whether that be a voter registration Sunday, or even better, a voter registration month. Now, once you've chosen your volunteer coordinator and team, and once you've scheduled when you're going to host your voter registration drive, now it's time to promote. Now, pastors, it starts with you, and it starts with you promoting the registration drive from the pulpit. But not only from the pulpit, you could promote the registration drive in the bulletins and the newsletters you hand out. You could put it on your church website, social media, maybe even some video announcements. Use any means possible to let your church know it's time to register. Pastors, it's not only important that you encourage your church to vote, it's important that you prepare your church to vote. On the Sundays preceding your voter registration drive, take the opportunity to teach your church the biblical values that they will be voting on. Teach the church what God's view of marriage is, what God's view is of the lives still in their mother's wombs. For more ideas on how to prepare your sermons or perhaps bulletin inserts with these topics, please visit watchmanonthewall.org. There you will find more tools and sermon starters to help you prepare your church. Once you've promoted your voter registration drive, and once you've prepared your church to vote, now it's time to register. Now, the key to voter registration is the voter registration forms. And there are different ways for you to hand out the registration forms to your members. You could hand out the registration forms to your members as they enter or leave church. As well, you could hand out the forms during service and allow some time for them to fill out the forms then and there. Now, it's important that once those forms are completed, that the volunteer deputy registrars collect the forms. It's the responsibility of the volunteer deputy registrar to make sure to check for accuracy in those forms. And once the forms have been made sure that they're accurate, the volunteer deputy registrar must turn in those forms within 5 business days to the elections office. Now, another very effective way to not only hand out registration forms, but to make sure that your members fill them out, is to set up a registration table. Now, it's important that you set up that table in an area that's highly visible and highly trafficked by your members. Now, you could decorate the table as elaborately or as simply as you'd like, but it's important that you encourage your volunteer team to leave the table and engage your members to bring them to the table to fill out the registration forms. Here are materials that you're going to want to make sure are available at your registration table. Of course, you're going to want to have your voter registration forms available, and once again, you can pick those up at your elections office. It is also important that you provide cards that show the differences in the different parties' platforms. What will also be helpful is to provide voter guides, and those voter guides could be obtained at ivotevalues.org or txvalues.org. Now, if you'd like to have an idea of what this all looks like, here's a small demonstration.
Welcome. How are you doing?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm glad you are here. Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Are you registered to vote?
No, but I've been wanting to register to vote.
You are in the right place because right here in church, you can fill this form. It will take only a couple of minutes, and then you are registered to vote.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Would you fill it out for us?
Absolutely. I am looking forward to doing this. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah.
See, we said it'd be easy. Now, you mustn't forget, once your church members have filled out their voter registration forms and submitted them, the volunteer deputy registrar must take those forms to the elections office within 5 business days. For additional information on voter registration drives and making sure that you follow the law, go to pages 15 through 18 in your voter resource guide, and you can also obtain that guide at frc.org. We hope that this information has been helpful to you.